Hello, I'm Dan, and welcome to my vlog, which is a critical analysis of football hooliganism. Football hooliganism is defined by Jules 2014 as episodes of crowd trouble inside and outside football stadiums on match days. In order to critically analyse football hooliganism, this vlog will firstly outline its historical rise and also to critically analyse its impact. Next, this vlog will critically examine how the media portray football hooliganism and the significance of this. Furthermore, in this vlog, I'll be examining the theories and explaining why hooliganism is so prevalent in football, especially within the UK. Finally, this vlog will analyse how hooliganism has historically been policed and how perhaps the criminal justice system and law enforcement should better deal with football hooliganism. Curtis 2019 describes how football hooliganism stretches back to 1349, when football was founded during King Edward III's reign. However, the game was forbidden as it distracted the citizens, generated ongoing social instability, violence between communities, and disrupted local merchants. The SIRC 2022 found that between 1946 and 1960, there were an average 13 incidents a season. However, hooliganism escalated between 1961 and 68, averaging 25 incidents. Organised hooligan firms rapidly emerged in the 70s, including the Villa Hardcore, the Birmingham Zulu Warriors, and the Manchester Red Army, who, after being relegated, caused mayhem throughout the country. Firms like these found on how we view football hooligans today and fueled a moral panic. Guard on the Road 2001 highlight how in the 1970s a growing number of black players were present in English football. With racial tension high and with the far-right National Front peaking, these players were frequently subject to racist abuse by football hooligans. This included the throwing of banana skins and monkey noises. Viv Anderson, England's first black player, and John Barnes are perhaps the most noticeable players to suffer from this racial abuse. There was a growing rise of football hooliganism in the 1980s, illustrated by an interim report by the Popplewell Committee investigation into football in 1985 that described Birmingham City versus Leeds United as more than the Battle of Agincourt in a football match, and debated whether football fans should be banned, and even if football would be able to continue at all. The most shocking event of all football hooliganism was the Hazel Stadium disaster, which was the 1985 European Cup final between Juventus and Liverpool, in which before kick-off Liverpool fans broke through a line of police and charged Juventus fans, starting mass brawls. Consequently, a wall collapsed and 39 Juventus fans were crushed to death. Subsequently, all English football clubs were banned from European football competitions until 1990, and English football fans became regarded as the worst in Europe. Since the integration of technology, such as mobile phones and internet forums, football hooliganism was transformed. Hooligans became organised, provoking rival hooligans, setting up fights online, such as organised fights from the Newcastle Gremlins and the Sunderland AFC firm in 2002, resulting in 30 arrests. Hooligans even used technology to send death threats, including to Fernando Torres and Swedish referee Anders Frisk, who resigned after facing death threats from Chelsea fans. Since 1989, Football Spectators Act was introduced, football violence in English stadiums declined. However, violence outside stadiums abroad at major football tournaments increased. So much so, English teams are threatening to be withdrawn from Euro 2000. The Manchester hooligan group leader, Blaney, 2014, argued one of the biggest changes that hooligans are no longer involved in crime overseas, including looting, instead engage in profit-orientated crime within the UK, such as drug dealing and ticket counterfeiting. This interview I conducted with Peter Smith, an ex-professional footballer for Birmingham City in the 1960s, gives a first-hand account of what football hooliganism was like and how it may have changed.
As a boy, I supported Aston Villa going into Villa Park with crowds of 60,000 people. There were very few incidents in the crowd, and no problems getting into the ground. Very few stewards were present and no police were visual in that period. I signed professional for Birmingham City at the age of 18 and played in front of crowds of 40,000 where there were actually no real problems that took place, nothing serious at all. Outside of Birmingham City I played for Tamworth, and there was a period where players were being attacked as they left the pitch and greeted by jeering fans as they came. Bricks were being thrown, and I saw evidence of this when I played for Tamworth. As the game became more commercialised, this provided the opportunity for crime outside the stadium. Counterfeit tickets being sold, merchandise being counterfeited, gangs developing, which caused real problems. After the Hillsborough inquiry, we went to all from standing crowds. It all calmed down, and we had a period of relative quiet, except for in the international games, where the Home Nations tournament had to be suspended because of violence between the fans of Scotland and England particularly. This theme has continued to develop as society has developed, And communications through the internet and travel have meant that people could organise much more clearly.
The origins of today's reporting of football hooligans can be attributed to the 1950s, in a period when the nation was concerned with increased youth criminality. The media started to broadcast more articles of this character, and football games were an ideal place to locate them. Paulson 2005 argues football hooliganism is easy prey for media, and the SIRC highlight how journalists are at every game around the UK, with all distractions inside stadiums captured by TV cameras. British tabloid press, in particular, were passionate in their coverage of football violence, using sensationalist titles like The Sun's "Smash These Thugs," "Murder on a Soccer Train," and the Daily Mirror's "Savages Animals." While outspoken disapproval of hooligans remained standard in media, such a sensationalist form of coverage created a moral panic and made football violence appear as a significantly greater social crisis. The danger of media sensationalisation was acknowledged in the Sports Council and Social Science Research Council's 1978 report on football disorder and sporting events. Media outlets, and especially the Sun's coverage of the Hillsborough disaster, demonstrated the media's enthusiasm to jump on and sensationalise the story of hooliganism. The report backed the police's false cover story, which blamed drunk hooligans for the death of the innocent 96. Gem-free and Berries in 2000 highlighted some disgusting headlines, including "The Truth." Ultimately, the media shamelessly exaggerate the dangers of football hooliganism in an attempt to increase sales, as identified by Scott and Pearce in 2007. Football hooliganism is essential to research and understand due to its significant consequences. Firstly, since hooliganism and the resulting violence can cause an impression that attending football games is unsafe for standard fans, despite football being a game for the masses. The Hayes Stadium disaster highlights a number of these consequences, including undoubtedly the most severe consequence being the loss of life and injuries. Additionally, football hooliganism also takes up a considerable amount of security and police resources, despite the authorities almost always being outnumbered and incapable to deal with full-on brawls. Next is a significant cost due to the destruction caused by riots. Jones and Rivers 2002 argued that the Cardiff Soul Crew are one of the most destructive hooligan firms in Britain, and were notorious for starting riots, for instance versus Stoke in 2000. Hooligan groups but also often operate as a gateway for crime. For instance, Colin Blaine in 2013 highlighted how over half of the Manchester United hooligans turned to serious crime and began selling Class A drugs. Additionally, Treadwell and Ayers described how since the 2000s, Class A drugs, especially cocaine, became increasingly popular among football fans. Additionally, to combat stop and searches, hooligan groups began recruiting younger fans to be used as drug mules into the stadiums. It is fundamental to understand no single theory explains football hooliganism. However, some offer valuable insight into potential factors causing it. While politicians, the media, and some academic reports have blamed alcohol on the naked English fan, Stott and Pearce in 2007 emphasised the role of intergroup dynamics among visiting fans and police in causing disorder, stating on page 328 that they wish for people to leave behind the idea that major riots are simply a product of hooligans travelling abroad to create mayhem. In fact, they argue that England's fans are rarely the aggressor, instead being frequently the target of police aggression. The violence that has characterised European football ever since the 1970s may be a result of the collision between two conflicting kinds of hypermasculinity. Stott and Reach in 1998 discovered when increased policing are deployed in minimal risk scenarios, it in reality correlated with the largest average level of disorder. Ultimately, their data provided convincing evidence suggesting increased policing in low-risk settings have been driving disorder. Societal fear of hooliganism, caused by the government's tough punishments and media coverage, also seems to have contributed to hooliganism, in the sense that they may have reinforced it. Murphy 1998 argues that despite increasing the safety of football grounds for normal supporters, such as through the practice of segregating opposition fans, which was implemented following the 1969 Lang Report, there is reason to believe that by separating young rival fans, they may have contributed to their solidarity and given them a sense of ownership over regions of the stadium. Additionally, while tougher sanctions for football-related crimes may have discouraged many fans from going to games, these fans may instead participate in hooligan activity outside of stadiums, which are harder to police. Such policies have failed to eliminate the problem. Furthermore, the adoption of more complex police measures perhaps causes the increased sophistication of hooligan organisation operations. Alternatively, Clark's 1978 advanced subcultural thesis claimed that football hooliganism was in reality a manifestation of skinhead culture and exploited football to push their anti-mainstream societal mentality. Meanwhile, Bulford 1991 believed that the adrenaline released while opposing fans collided was a significant supporting factor in football hooliganism. Similarly, Cressidi 2017 discusses the importance of emotions, both individually and collectively, since a carnival-like atmosphere surrounds a lot of human deviance. Perhaps football matches created the opportunity for deviance due to their atmosphere. Football alone can be seen as inciting violence. According to Dunning 2014, football is able to trigger violence because the game's standards promote aggression. Bandura and Walters argued in 1977 that footballers are prone to participate in violence, which is noticed by spectators who mimic it. This supports social learning theory, which states that a person learns behaviours from others. Scott Pearce in 2007 argued that heavy tackles and fights contribute to why a football game could be used to include physical conflicts amongst players, and therefore utilised to reinforce the viewpoint that conflict is merely a part of football. Dunning 2014 also observed that the amount of violence among football hooligans decreased simultaneously with the rates of progression in the game. Sparge 2007 also argues that fans bring their support to the game by violence and abuse that replicates what fans witness on the pitch. Meanwhile, Collins 2008 suggests that the honour code is a cultural ideology and is at the centre of hooliganism. By serving the group's need for protection, cohesion and solidarity, similarly to what Anderson 2000 refers to as a street code. According to Matson 1964, this code isn't ever defined, and rather being achieved by mutual understanding, this honour code is obviously visible in planned fights between opposing hooligan groups. Alternatively, according to Elliott and Dunning 1986, the civilising process is likely the source of growing up to hooliganism. They suggest that sport is the pursuit of excitement within a more civilised society, where people must be controlled and obedient constantly. Sport instead provides an escape from this, a moral holiday and a quest of excitement. Undoubtedly it is essential that football hooliganism is policed effectively in order to reduce and mitigate such consequences. In 1985, Thatcher set up a war cabinet to combat football hooliganism. One of these policies implemented was the banning of bother boots, which were steel caps and a popular weapon of hooligans at the time. One of the earliest forms of policing hooliganism was advocated by the English Football Association, who suggested plainclothes officers be used in the 1960s. By the 1980s, the police believed football hooligans had evolved from an ill-organised rabble into a highly organised troop with a complex network of hierarchy. Hobbes 1995 describes how officers were given new identities and infiltrated the hooligan networks from 1986. These techniques resulted in multiple house raids of suspected hooligan leaders. Crowd segregation also became a key strategy, which included the separation of rival fans in stadiums. Additionally, after the games, the away supporters began being held behind to allow home fans to depart the stadium, reducing conflicts. In 1994, all top-flight English stadiums became all-seater stadiums in order to reduce the number of fans attending games. Spotters also became the primary method to monitor hooliganism. This is when a liaison officer is assigned to a specific club, identifying and monitoring hooligans as they travel to away games. Sparge 2013 outlines how increased security through CCTV, video monitoring, and a huge number of stewards who closely monitor fans throughout a match have been at the foundation of modern-day policing of football hooliganism. Furthermore, early kick-offs and alcohol restrictions have been implemented to reduce alcohol consumption, theoretically reducing the amount of hooliganism and violence. Travel restrictions and banning known troublemakers temporarily or permanently from games has also become a newer method of enforcement. Willens and Grew 2018 outlined the importance of educating fans while also encouraging positive conduct and condemning hooliganism via promotional campaigns and high-profile partnerships. Academics have mostly dismissed football hooligans' voices since Gary Armstrong's 1999 study. In order to better understand how to best prevent football hooliganism, further research into the true perspective of those involved must be carried out. Additionally, further education programmes denouncing hooliganism and promoting the correct fan conduct is necessary. For instance, the Premier League's No Room for Racism campaign, denouncing racist abuse of all kinds. However, the EFL and Premier League need to act in unison in their attempt to reduce racist abuse, rather than acting as separate organisations, each with their separate campaigns. Finally, Sparge 2005 suggests increased cooperation between local authorities and football clubs alongside a less aggressive policing strategy should be utilised, as research has suggested aggressive policing only increases violence. In conclusion, football hooliganism has existed since the 14th century, however escalated dramatically throughout the 20th century, and on occasion had catastrophic consequences. Today it remains extremely prevalent in football, having even progressed with the times. Despite attempts to reduce hooliganism via fan segregation, increased security, alcohol consumption reductions, and undercover operations. The media historically has sensationalised stories of football hooliganism, instilling a moral panic in the public in order to boost sales. While no individual theory explains why hooliganism occurs, in collaboration they paint a clearer picture of how societal and cultural factors, including hypermasculinity, the civilising process, and social learning theory, as well as aggressive policing, have resulted in increased levels of hooliganism. Finally, I feel greater attention needs to be paid to the voices of football hooligans, alongside a less aggressive policing strategy, in order to reduce hooliganism. Thank you for watching, and I really hope this vlog has helped develop your understanding of football hooliganism, as well as the potential theoretical causes of it.